Within a few days, the new refugees will all be herded into this compound, and there she can meet them all again.
This is the transit station for new refugees. Actually, this is a police detention center, but it has been made use of to house all newcomers from all the different districts of Nong Khai. The Laotians, the Hmong, and all other ethnic tribes of Laos are detained here for an average of 10 days. Right now, we have over 1,250 new refugees housed in this area.
What is it like living in a detention center? In the morning, when people move about and take the air, it looks a little like a cross between life at the anthill and a day at the races. The food won't arrive until sometime after 11. That's a bit hard to understand when you're young and hungry. Why can't Mommy and Daddy turn up a bit of rice or even a mango or banana? Mommy and Daddy can't help because they've become refugees who are dependent on others for food, clothing, bedding, and medicine. Once they were self-reliant and self-respecting. Now they produce nothing, earn nothing, and own nothing. Any little valuables refugees may try to bring with them are taken as perks by the border police. So they stand in line, wait for their names to be called, and accept gratefully the daily ration.
The condition in this transit center is rather dismal. It is too overcrowded, and then the toilets are few and they cannot serve the purpose. They cannot serve all these over 1,200 people adequately. The toilets are now overflowing and the ditches and the drainage are clogged. We need a lot of material just to prevent epidemics.
But perhaps the greatest problem of all is to find living space. Space to put down a sleeping mat, to feed the baby, or even to have a quiet game of draughts with one's friends. Accommodation at the detention center varies a great deal. There is a well-built house with veranda, the camp equivalent of the Sheraton or Hilton. Lower down the scale comes a hut built with coconut matting and bamboo, fine in the dry season, but unthinkable in the monsoon. Across from the bamboo hut is an open building with solid roof, a bit like a cattle pen perhaps, and host to other kinds of animals, but dry and serviceable for all that. More of such solid structures are clearly needed, but Thai government policy forbids the erection of any more permanent buildings, and so people have to do as best they can, even if only under a sheet. After the distribution of food, there's only one other thing to look forward to in a detention center, and that is to getting out. And so people forever hang around, waiting in hope for the day when their name will be called, and they and their family can move to the relative spaciousness of the Nong Khai Refugee Camp, 2 kilometers or so to the east on the road to Pompasai. Seen from above, the Nong Khai Refugee Camp with its blocks of buildings may look more like a Roman military camp than an eastern village. Markets are held in the camp, trucks are loaded and trucks are unloaded, warehouses filled and warehouses emptied, goods checked and receipts issued, and transport arranged to the local shops. These are scenes that one might expect to see in any town or village in Indochina. But beneath the apparent normality, there is much also that is quite abnormal.
Last year, at this time, we had only about 18,000 people. Now it has almost doubled. And the overcrowding is so severe that the newcomers far outstrip the toilet facilities, the drainage facilities, and every sanitary measures that is needed in a fast-growing community. We have about two and a half persons per 1 square meter of space. That's how serious the overcrowding is. So when one child gets sick, or pneumonia, or gets the measles, everybody gets it. We are always in danger of epidemics. I have been always conscious and have asked many people and many agencies to help us in our problems of congestion, because congestion spawns a lot of problems, medically, socially, and psychologically.
Where large numbers of people are herded together in small spaces, where no drainage is provided except open sewers, and where supplies of water are inadequate, one lives with the ever-present threat of epidemic diseases. That there have been no epidemics in Nong Khai so far is a great tribute to the medical team. This is the Nong Khai Camp Hospital, 2 by a bridge between. By any standards, its facilities are primitive. Yet despite the poverty of resources, Nong Khai and most of the refugee camps in Thailand have an admirable medical record. This is due to different factors, such as the presence among refugees of many nurses and doctors. Also to the special interest of Christian organizations overseas who help with supplies of money and medicine. But most of all, it's due to the skill and dedication of people like Dr. Garcia, who have the ability to earn substantial money in their own country, but who choose to work for refugees. They are modern, good Samaritans, who when their neighbor called for help hadn't the heart to pass by. But surrounded by more and more people who begin to despair that they'll ever leave the camp, even Dr. Garcia at times gets depressed. Meeting so many examples of man's inhumanity to man, perhaps only an unfeeling person would not get depressed. At certain times of the year, a team of interviewers from the U.S. Immigration visit Nong Khai to screen new applicants. You might be a Nobel Prize winner in science or medicine, but if you want to go to America, it doesn't count for much in your application. The kinds of questions that do count are: have you close relatives in the U.S.? Were you employed by the U.S. government in Indochina? Were you closely associated with U.S. policies or programs because of your position in former Indo-Chinese governments or armed forces, or because of having worked for American firms or organizations? In July 1979, the principal Western nations met at Geneva and agreed to double the number of refugees they were willing to accept the coming year to 250,000. This was indeed progress. At the same time, there were already 380,000 Indo-Chinese refugees in camps around Southeast Asia. Both people were leaving Vietnam at the rate of 65,000 a month, while in summer '79, 42,000 Cambodians were sent back across the border to almost certain death by Thai military authorities. This squalid building with the ardent gates and the dust blowing through and the rows of anxious people waiting for their names to be called has indeed been the gates of paradise for some. Perhaps someday for me too, if only my father had worked for the U.S. government. When men and women decide to leave their homeland and everything they've ever worked for, they don't do it for trifling reasons. Often the move is accompanied by a sudden traumatic experience involving violence, even injury or death for loved ones or close friends. Inevitably, this brutal shock causes some degree of emotional disturbance. Having passed through this traumatic uprooting, the refugee is thrown into a camp where he has to cope with all the stresses associated with gross overcrowding. Add to that the realization that there's no work, that 90% of the children are growing up without schooling, and that unless some of the richer countries liberalize their immigration policies, most of the people in the camp have no foreseeable hope of ever leaving it. Under such conditions, it must be difficult to keep sane. Nong Khai, April 1979. Dear fellow human beings, I write to you because I've nothing else to do. Most people here have nothing to do. I don't mind the food, the lack of water, the crowding together, but if only I'd a little hope. Only you can give me hope. I can do nothing for myself. Even though I am a stranger, please take me in. When I came to the camp last year, there were 20,000 people. Now there are 20,000 more. About 100 new people arrive every day, young and old, some in desperate condition. I think even men of stone would be moved to pity.
This is a 14-year-old boy from Vientiane. He came with his parents and 4 brothers and sisters. They hired a boat to cross from Vientiane towards Nong Khai. And while they were in the middle of the river, they were shot at by the communists from the Lao side. He sustained these 2 gunshot wounds. They look very bad, and the foot is starting to be gangrenous. This morning when I saw this, it's not like this, but it is rapidly affecting the whole foot. See the toes? There's no more circulation. It's already black and blue. And I'm afraid the only thing we can do here is to amputate. And I have to send him very soon, as soon as possible, to Bangkok. I say that in spite of the condition of the foot of this boy, or the whole leg, he is still lucky because there is a wound, another bullet wound here, which could have been very fatal. But it just grazed the tip of the left eyebrow. Could have been really fatal. I'm asking him if he's happy he's here. He said he's happy. Yeah. Every hour counts, kids, because the blood is getting, I don't know how you understand, the blood is getting poisoned, the blood is getting polluted. He's very young. I like your son. He has a very high morale in spite of the severe undergoing now.
The injured leg was amputated the following day, 27th March 1979, the year of the child.